corporate employees, corporate teams meet with fear. Why are people so anxious when somebody says your manager wants to see you?
If you're not doing a regular one-on-one with the employee, not dealing the conversations with curiosities, but dealing the conversations with judgments, that creates a lot of anxiety in the employee.
If somebody read the job description of a manager or leader, coaching and building your team is definitely part of it.
The culture comes from there. If
Yeah.
the leadership at tops behaves differently, it percolates down.
Yeah.
So when the manager is meeting his manager and with his manager is meeting his manager, it's coming from the top. The absence of such scenarios, the people feel and the organization feel.
Right.
And that builds in a lot of stress and burnout, which results in the not having the mental
Right.
wellness situation.
Right. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of our second season of Close the Loop. Really excited to have someone I consider an old friend, Sumanpreet Bhatia, who's the VP HR of Exotel. I'm really excited to have her on to talk about a topic that I care about a lot, which is mental well-being, but we won't be talking about what are tools and resources like EAP that can promote mental well-being in the company. We're going to be talking about something which is more core, which is how you design org structures, roles, teams, and how can an org be designed to promote mental well-being and kind of reduce burnout. So should be a great topic today. I'm really excited and thanks for tuning in. Thanks everyone for joining us. How you doing?
Happy to be here.
Yeah, awesome. I think maybe before we get started, you've had kind of a number of great HR leadership stints in your career. So maybe you can just walk through quickly where all you've been in your career.
Sure. So, start of my career, I have about 24 years of experience, all mostly been in HR. 2 years barring, which was running my own college, and then we sold it off and then get back to HR. About 10 to 12 years has been largely in services sector, leading the HR functions. I did all the areas like from recruitment to HR BP to operations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So worked with NES, worked with Relevance Lab, great organizations, moved to product sector, worked with a couple of product organizations. I worked for Mitel, I worked for Hortonworks, I worked for Qbol, and then joined Exotel, have been with Exotel, great journey, great people for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
I head the HR for Exotel.
Awesome. I think before we jump, there's something from your career journey that I think is very unique, which is you ran a university.
Yeah.
How has your experience running a university translated to managing people?
Absolutely. Working with youngsters is very different than working with the organizations. Given that that stint gave me an understanding how to coach and develop people because it's a learning area. I bring that back in the organizations when I work with people. And then more importantly, that was an entrepreneurial journey. So it helps me to connect with the organization and business a lot more than only being an HR and sitting on the other side of the table.
Makes sense. Probably helped in all the startup companies that you've worked in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really helped.
Something we were talking about before is, this statement in a company which you hear, which is your manager wants to see you.
Yeah.
Why does your manager wants to see you? Why is that a statement that corporate employees, corporate teams meet with fear? Why are people so anxious when somebody says your manager wants to see you?
I think it's a lot to do with how the culture of the organization is and how the managers are trained. So if you're not doing a regular one-on-one with the employee and you're just calling and then not dealing the conversations with curiosities, but dealing the conversations with judgments, that's when that creates a lot of anxiety in the employees. However, if your managers are trained to do regular conversations, give regular feedback, they understand how to lead the conversations, they do regular one-on-ones, that creates a very different culture.
Yeah.
And then the employee don't have the anxiety to go when the manager wants to have a discussion. But if he feels my manager is my coach, then the employee is going there with a very different mindset. And goes there to discuss the problems rather than getting into, okay, I will be questioned on what hasn't happened and not on what are the issues that I'm facing and how do I resolve them.
Yeah. How can managers adopt that kind of coaching mindset? And what do you think gets in the way? Because I think if somebody read the job description of a manager or leader, coaching and building your team is definitely part of it, right? But why do you think that kind of gets dropped, or maybe it doesn't get as much attention as it deserves?
Yeah, I think multiple things. I strongly believe how your top is treating you. If the leadership at top is, the culture comes from there. If the leadership at tops behaves differently, it percolates down.
Yeah, makes sense.
So when the manager is meeting his manager and with his manager is meeting his manager, it's how it's coming from the top.
Yeah.
Two, sometimes I feel that there's so much on the table that people have to achieve. There's so much pressure that they go through as a manager, because as you go up in hierarchy, your pressure keeps increasing.
Yeah.
And technically that's what you're paid for, and to handle that pressure. And if you're not able to manage your workload and pressure, if your leadership is treating people with a lot of coaching mindset and lot of and the culture flows down like that, and then the manager also starts behaving the same way, and the same culture keeps percolating down.
You've been in a lot of organizational situations. You've been problem solving and troubleshooting org design for a big part of your career. When an organization was designed in a way that did not promote good performance and did not promote mental well-being, what was that situation like, and how did you guys come out of that?
A lot of time organizations fail because of poor design, be it the structures of the organization, be it the performance management systems. Everything should be designed in a way that it helps to achieve the organization goal. So once you know what you're going to achieve, let's say you're in a very fast-paced organization and you want to achieve growth, and you're targeting a strategy of, let's say, from you're an SMB and you want to shift to enterprise, for example. The structures have to change.
Yeah.
You need to, let's say, a sales organization. You need to create the sub-functions around the sales organization that helps support the sales to be successful.
Right.
And not create the organization that is not giving them cushioning. That is one.
Yeah.
And hence the frameworks like performance management, the compensation frameworks, everything has to be attached to that.
Right.
So it cannot happen in silos. That's one example. The other example is most of the organization, you would say, feel that engineering and sales function don't work hand in hand. For that matter, any two functions. Unless the structures and designs are built in a way that all the organizations are collaborating, the structures are forcing them to collaborate in some form and shape, because people are human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the absence of such scenarios, the organization, the people fail, and the organization fail.
Right.
And that builds in a lot of stress and burnout, which results in the not having the mental wellness situation, right?
And then in that situation, I feel like people end up then spending so much time resolving just the stress and the burnout, which are symptoms of the core problem.
Absolutely. And a lot of people give up. In that burnout state, first of all, a lot of people don't know how to react. And then they don't have the support from the counselors.
Right.
And trust me, I have seen that starting from top. I have seen leaders burning out. Now, it could be communication structure, it could be the organization design structure, it could be the compensation structures, it could be the performance structures. All of that has to be done keeping in mind what is that the organization wants to achieve and what is the strategy. If they are not connected with each other and to the goal, then it will tend to fail somewhere.
Yeah.
And the burnout starts typically from the leadership, and it percolates down because there are times that they are not able to hold the stress and they don't know who to go and talk to.
Right.
And they go around and talk to each other, which further builds the stress, and they pass on the stress to their next in line and next in line.
What I'm hearing is the longer the problem remains unsolved, it just festers and grows and gets bigger. So I think, our audience here is a lot of HR professionals as well, and I'm sure every one of them can look at maybe one function in their organization where they realize, wow, the core work that needs to be done by these core teammates in this function, they don't have the right support systems around them. I'm sure in all of our organizations, we can identify one team today that is like that.
Totally. And it's often when a person is failing, I think it is very important to sit and double click why the person has been failing.
Right.
Because somewhere it's not only connected to that individual,
Yeah.
it may be a larger problem.
What can like if an HR professional today is identifying that, hey, I think this function, I mean, I'm starting to see signs of stress and burnout, and it's because there's not these other support systems, or this function is not designed in the right way, or we've set unrealistic targets. What is like the first step that they can do, right? Obviously, they don't lead that function. They kind of partner with the leaders of this function.
Absolutely.
But what's like the right first step for somebody to take?
That's the HR partner's role. In my opinion, they collaborate and partner and work very closely with the business unit head and the leadership of the organization. And trust me, sometimes HR partners are the first one to identify the problem on the floor, because they do a lot of connects, because they talk to people, and tendency is they come back and feed that information to HR.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes there's a lot of noise. The HR partners should know how to cut down the noise and take the meat, relevant information, and sit with the leadership team to understand what is the main problem and then work on redesigning.
Yeah.
I do feel that a lot of HR people typically fails because there's so much of an information they get, they sometimes are lost in that. The core problems are lost in that information. One of the things that I think can really help is having counselors as part of the organization design, because when people go and talk to them, today sometimes the disconnect is they are not coming and filling back right information again back to the HR people.
Right.
And that is a very relevant information. I don't know in what form and shape, but if that information comes back, the HR people will be able to make better decisions.
So you shared this example of a sales organization who's changing strategy. They're selling from SMBs now to larger enterprises. That's a big task. You identified that stress and burnout is happening. Maybe the sales folks aren't getting the right support. Maybe we've not hired the right salespeople. What was then the journey after you identified that problem to taking your first steps and saying, okay, I think we're on the right track? What were some of those first initiatives that you took with the sales
team? The first is to understand from the sales team what is that they need.
Yeah.
What is that is letting them fail or not helping them to succeed. What is the kind of infrastructure and cushioning that they are looking at? That is part one.
Yeah.
Two, identifying and hiring the right set of people who have the skill to do that job. In terms of not competencies only, also in terms of experiences. Sometimes it helps when people have seen that.
Yeah. Especially for enterprise sales.
Yes, especially for enterprise sales. So if you get those people in, and they also help to mentor other set of people, which you already have, and you want to groom them to go through that journey. So, A, creating the right required structures within the growth function.
Yeah.
B, upskilling the talent and training the talent. C, I think one of the things that across all organizations that I've felt is the way the sales enablement plans have been structured. What you have to sell, you need to know that in and out. And how you have to pitch that is not only dependent on what you currently have, is also dependent on what the organization is visioning to build.
Right.
And it's also about the information that they have. It's also about what they know.
Yeah.
So I think these are the three areas that are very, very important when you want the sales team to be successful.
Yeah.
Or you want to shift your strategy towards a different model, or you want to create a different strategy.
Yeah.
And I think one of the important factors is also how closely they are working with other set of organizations. So how you're building the culture and building the processes within the organization for them to collaborate with the other organizations. Because sales team don't function in silos.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody is around them and supporting them, and that's when they're successful.
Yeah. If we said, why do our teams not perform well in any organization, one of the top reasons would be lack of cross-functional understanding or collaboration or whatever. Anything you recommend in terms of how to bring two functions together, how to encourage maybe two functions who historically have had some tension working together? How do you kind of, make one happy family under one roof?
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Unless people have common goal, it's difficult for a large organization to come together and operate, together.
Yeah.
And collaborate. It's human, most of the cases. Hence, you have to create their KRAs which are intersecting with each other. In my experience, this is a framework that we created, one of the organization. OKRs definitely helps.
Yeah.
But when the OKRs are percolating down, how are they intersecting between the functions is very important. And that's not only from the KRAs and goals perspective. It is also about how you are compensating people from that perspective.
Right.
How is the compensation intersecting with each other? The variables are talking to each other.
Right.
You have to create the plans in alignment with that. If I and you are measured on a common goal and are paid on a common goal, I would definitely
Right.
I don't
It's
have a
very
choice but to
natural to
work
partner
with. It's
together.
very natural to partner
Right.
with you.
Right. Right.
So it helps. It helps to bring people together, and it helps a lot more when you make them sit together and say, create your common goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they have to define their own common goals, and when you start bringing the whole organization, which is only measured on one revenue number or one profitability numbers,
Yeah.
they automatically start talking to each other.
Yeah. Makes sense. We're talking about how orgs are designed. Orgs are designed to do work, and now I think the nature of work is changing, right? I think that's creating a lot of anxiety in teams and in professionals, right? I think people are, seeing all the change that's happening with AI, seeing how this is leading to maybe layoffs or changes in how work gets done, and I think that's creating a lot of anxiety for people. What can we do to prepare our teams for all this change in work that comes from AI? How do we get them excited about it? And how do we increase their sense of security and safety about their career, their job, etc.?
The HR people have to start working with leaders to understand 2 years later, 1 year later, 3 years later, where is the product going? Where is the organization going? Where is the vision?
Right.
And then work backwards to understand 2 years, 3 years later, what is the skill that you would need?
Yeah.
If you start working with people and telling them that this is where we are going, this is the organization vision, this is the kind of skill that we would require, and we're going to start working with you on upskilling that, the anxiety will automatically reduce. A lot of time we are only working for today. We are trying to solve today's problem, and not that we don't have the vision for that.
Right.
It's just that we don't have sometimes the time and bandwidth for that.
Yeah.
But I think the learning function will play a very large role in this.
Yeah. No, totally. I think it's about creating a path and a structure for them and seeing where that role fits in.
Absolutely. And it is not only that. I think we have to start coming up. It's a huge shift that the world is seeing. We have to start building everything around that. Yeah. I mean, we have to start creating the development plans around that. We have to start creating the learning plans, compensation models, everything in alignment with what we are going to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite a lot of new work to do.
It's quite a lot of new work that we're going to be doing.
So, obviously people teams are supported by this large vendor ecosystem, right? You have your HRMS partners, your, insurance and healthcare partners, et cetera. Is there any sort of requests that you have from this vendor ecosystem? What are the maybe products or features or things that you would like to see that don't exist today, right? We were talking about measuring maybe return on investment, right? Or employee pulse. Are there tools and technologies that could help you guys or other HR professionals that you would like to see in the market?
A lot.
Yeah. Maybe you can give a wish list and we'll send this to everybody.
Talking about the wellness platform, I think the measurement piece is majorly missing. What is the return on investment? What is the ROI that we are bringing on the table when we as an organization are investing X money on the employees as a benefit?
Right.
And that does help HR people, because when they go back and you start with the ROIs, it's easier for you to get the better approvals for the better money.
Right.
And you get better budgets.
Right.
And you are able to invest more on the employees' benefits. Today, I am not able to show how I've spent X money and how the productivity, efficiency, the health of an employee has impacted.
Yeah.
Be it mental or be it physical well-being, how has that changed? How has the whole scenario changed? I'm sure with AI we can do a lot more
Yeah.
in terms of the predictions for future, but we are unable to do that today.
Mm.
It is not that we cannot spend time and do that, but if it is part of the whole platform, it is going to be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that makes sense.
talking from the well-being perspective, yeah, this is one.
Yeah.
And there are many. With the AI coming in, I think the HR itself can reshape big time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a common one that a lot of people are saying is how can we use AI to listen to employees, employee pulse,
Absolutely.
stuff like that. So yeah, one of the things that we did recently, and I know this is not my interview, but I think you would be interested and excited to share this, is that, you know, when lots of companies do annual health checkups and you get this PDF report with all these numbers and values, and then you start Googling what is triglycerides. So, you know, we used AI to basically digest and understand your lab report and then share you a AI-generated care plan. So that
Amazing.
employees right away can have something that they can go through. And, you know, I really think within healthcare specifically, there's lots of, you know, whether it's helping explain your diagnostic report or making it easier for doctors to share summaries of your case with other doctors. I think there's lots of ways to do that. So, you know, hopefully
That's
us
useful.
as a vendor ecosystem and other partners, hopefully we keep shipping
Absolutely.
new and new things for you.
Absolutely.
Any last thought that you have before we end for today? Any last thought for the HR audience?
In my thought process, nothing works independently. Be it the organization design, be it the performance management, be it the compensation philosophies, be it the wellness, be it the benefits. Everything, every person in HR, right from bottom to top, has to understand that it is it has to be designed based on the organization goal in mind. If it is done independently without understanding where the organization is going, it may not be as successful.
Makes total sense. Yeah, I think that's a great summary of our chat today. Suman, thanks so much for coming.
So
Excited to see what you get up to in the next, you know, stages of your career, next few years, and hopefully we can have you on again at some point. And
Absolutely.
see you
It's a
around.
pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Yay, cool.
Cut.